everybody. Long time no see. Where have I been? Well, the astute amongst you will have seen my website, www.the-spin-doctor.co.uk. Has been a minor activity over the last 6 months. I've posted a lot of art journaling, a lot of other stuff on there. My Instagram account, my Twitter account, you can find them all from my website. So please, if you just sort of deal with me on YouTube, go over to those my website and look at Twitter and Instagram and so on and follow me there, and then you won't miss anything. Where have I been? I've explained this already in the past, but basically, in short, I've had a lot of personal upheaval and things in the last 6 months, and it's just been really hard to keep up with running a channel, which is a lot of work, on top of everything else I've had to do. So apologies, but I'm trying to come back. And as many people know, it's kind of like the longer you leave the washing up, the harder it gets to actually do it, and it mounts up, or at least it does for me. So this is my attempt to sort of get back going again. Now, I'm reviewing today a set by Holbein. It's a starter set by Holbein, watercolour set, a starter watercolour set. Do excuse the wobbly table. You'll note real wood now. This is an old dining table that I never really used, and so I've moved it into my studio because I can, and I just prefer the height of this for painting. And my big table, the table you used to see, I'm using for messier activity, things that involve ink and paint and acrylic and all that sort of thing. So you'll see two different tables when I move the camera around. So this Holbein set is sold as a starter set. That's the lid. Holbein Artist Watercolours. I've actually commandeered the lid for storage of other paints. So yeah, we'll come on to that in a minute. And you get 6 5mm tubes of paint, which are actually quite cute little tubes. I think they're actually quite sweet in size. They are a Japanese company. This is a Japanese watercolour, effectively, and they don't add any kind of flow aids or anything like that when they make it. So the idea is that you have more control. That's one of its big selling points. And the colours you get struck me as perhaps somewhat odd, because I expect in a starter set a minimum of a warm and cool of each, red, blue and yellow, and really a yellow ochre and a burnt sienna. That's really, I think, the minimum, and that's obviously 8 colours. This is a set of 6, so I expected to see some things I knew, and I was a little bit surprised. So permanent yellow deep is a very warm yellow, first of all. So there's only one yellow, and it's a very warm yellow. There's only one blue, and that is peacock blue, which is a mixed blue. They're all actually mostly mixed colours, but I'll come on to the pigmentation in a moment. There's 2 reds. You get a vermilion hue and a crimson lake. So you've got a warm and cool red, a cool blue, and a warm yellow. Odd combination. A Viridian hue, which is a cool green, and obviously a burnt sienna, which is a warm earth. So if you're a beginner, I don't think that is really a useful or particularly usable set of paints, because it's just a bit of an odd set. It's not a logical set. So I have swatched them out already, and I'm going to swatch them again and mix with them and things so you can see. But let's just go through them. So the reds, first of all, the vermilion hue is 3 pigments. There is PO73 Pyrrole Orange, PR254 Pyrrole Red, and PY110 Isoindolene Yellow. So you've got 3 pigments already just in the red. That is going to produce muddy mixes very easily because it's already got so many pigments. Crimson Lake is exactly the same deal. You've got PR177 Anthraquinone Red, PR122 Quinacridone Red, and PB19 Quinacridone Violet. Again, you're setting yourself up for mud here, and it really surprises me that in a starter set they put so many mixes, but there you go. The blue next, Peacock Blue. It's an odd one. It's a mixture of PG17 phthalo green blue shade and PB15 of an unspecified subpigment phthalo blue green shade, most probably. So they've mixed a cool blue with a cool green to make it slightly more green, but to be honest, that just looks like phthalo blue, so the amount of green they've probably added is really small, but again, you're asking for mud. The yellow next, permanent yellow deep. is Pigment Yellow 74, Arylide Yellow 5GX, and Pigment Yellow 83, Diarylide Yellow HR. I mean, it's a nice yellow. It's a lovely, warm, sort of fake cad yellow deep, but again, mixed. The Viridian hue, why they call it that, I don't know. It looks nothing like Viridian. It's just PG7 phthalo green blue shade. So you've got a single pigment there, but it's a secondary colour. And again, you have a single pigment for your earth, which is PBR7 brown iron oxide. Now, some people prefer their burnt sienna to be a PR101, a red iron oxide, or PR102, the natural version thereof. But brown iron oxide is perfectly fine. I mean, it's got a bit of warmth to it. The camera doesn't pick that up terribly well. Cameras don't do well with greens and oranges, so the orange hue to this brown is kind of lost, but it is there. So those are the colours that you get. I have dried them down in these here half pans just to make them easier to handle. And these larger full pans at the back are White Nights, which are coming up in another video very, very soon, possibly today. So let's get these out and have a play with them and see how well they mix. The obvious things to look at are colour wheels, and we're very limited in doing that because we have got a slightly odd combination. Let me zoom so that you can see. Now the surf, that's just something careering to the floor in the background. Try not to worry. That was just a paint palette. So this is Langton Rough. It's a chemical pulp paper. It's a rough surface, which is what I prefer to work on. And let's do the two possible colour wheels that we can do. So we've got a cool red with a warm yellow and a cool blue. And we've got a warm red with a warm yellow and a cool blue. This is a Pitt Indian ink marker, so it's going to bleed. I'm going to try not to get paint on this, but I probably will. And then I also want to look at the classical burnt sienna warm blue is what I would normally do, but I don't have one, so I'm going to have to do it with a cool blue and see if I can make a neutral. So those are my first trials. I'm going to use today it's a size 8 Proline Plus by ProArt, one of my favourite brushes, and this one's a size 8 Filbert specifically. So let's pop some water just here. Dirty water, as you can see. Quite a grubby brush, actually. I'm not going to paint there. Sorry, I hadn't realised how filthy my brush was. I think I answered the telephone and didn't clean it. It's had a green gold on it by the looks of things. Yes, it has. I'm going to just get a different brush. I'm back, but some things never change. Right, let's go on to a Daylon size 12 round, and I'll just do that. I'll just do them up on the other side of the paper, and then no one's ever going to know I did that. So this is going to be our cool red, warm yellow, cool blue triad, and then we've got a warm red, warm yellow, cool blue. And we could, let's actually do all three, what we can do. There's also an earth red, warm yellow, cool blue, which would be to use the burnt sienna as the red. So let's see how we get on. I'm just going to have to jiggle my pans around a bit so I know which one's which. Right, there's my cool one, and my blue should be... Sorry, I haven't filmed a video in such a long time. I'm really clumsy. Since I've had several false starts, so I'll just check that the brush is actually, yes, it is clean, it's okay. So I'm going to just pop down a little bit of water there, and I'm going to pick up some of that Crimson Lake, that cool red. From a dried blob in a palette, and I haven't pre-wetted them, it lifts reasonably easily. I mean, it's not lifting like Schminker, but it is lifting. It does want to come out. So let's get a blob of that down. And yeah, there's a lot of pigment there. There's a lot of colour. And I've left one edge of the paper very wet so that we can really see how the colour does. And it's nice having rough paper because the paint will move into the sort of gaps in between the hills and valleys, into the valleys between the hills, I should say, all of its own accord, and that is obviously very helpful. Excuse me while I clean my brushes properly, otherwise someone writes in and tells me off. So we'll do our peacock blue next, our cool blue. And this is lifting a little bit more easily, which is encouraging. And I'm going to put that across the bottom here. So already you can see there we're getting a sort of muted, earthy, lavender grey, not a proper purple. Can't get a bright purple with a cool blue. And we'll put some more of it over here. I mean, it's a nice peacock blue. I mean, it's not an unpleasant colour at all. I'll put plenty down so that we can see it. Okay, and now we'll add the yellow. This is our Pigment Permanent Yellow Deep. And this one is lifting similarly to the red. It really doesn't want to come out as easily. Okay, so we'll put this first of all into the red, and we expect an earthy orange. So we get a very brown orange there. That's really very brown indeed. Not a nice orange at all. But that's what you get with a cool red and a warm yellow. You're adding a third colour effectively, so it's going to be very muted. And now we should get a sort of earthy muddy green over here, which is exactly what we get. And I'll just pop out some of this so you can get another look at it as a colour on its own. Okay, so not a bad set of colours, but let's do the next triad. And for this triad I'm not going to do all the mixes because obviously the only thing we're changing is the red. So I'm going to do the red with the yellow and the red with the blue, and I won't bother doing the blue with the green because that's kind of futile. Pop a bit of water down to aid this one along. Switch to the warm red, the vermilion hue. Now this one is a bit easier to get moving, and it's got a fair granulation to it. It does remind me of a cad red, you know, there's nothing nasty about it. It's a bit insipid, but you know, you can make these things work. I can't, yeah, I can see that, sorry, because where the camera is I can't actually quite see the colour properly, but we'll persevere. And first thing I'm going to add is the yellow this time. Mix things up a bit, put the yellow in up here. We should get a nice, theory, a warm red and a warm yellow gives a lovely warm orange. And this one is quite brown, so as I suspected we don't get a bright orange here really, because of course we are working with so many mixed pigments, which is just a bit strange. And I'm going to do the blue down this side, which is a safe area to put it, where I'm not going to get any issues. I'm going to put it into the water and move it up, because then we won't overload it. And a warm blue and a cool blue and a warm red is going to give a grey usually, and that is more or less what we have. That really is a grey, that is not a purple. So we've got a nice lavender and not an unpleasant cool grey there. Let's try the third triad, which is with the earth red instead. I'm going to turn the paper around to do this one. I'm going to do the same deal, just mix the two. Actually, I'll have to mix all the colours. No, I don't. I'll just mix the two that I want. So I'm going to put some burnt sienna down, and this is lifting really easily, which is interesting because earth colours without a sort of dispersant don't always want to go that well. I mean, it's not a very red brown, so I'm not expecting to get actual proper colour from this. I think what we're just going to get is a sludgy yellow and a sludgy blue, but you know, let's try it. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Yellow first. Yeah, just a sludgy browny yellow there. Kind of yellow ochre, so you can make a sort of an ochre-y colour if you want one. Not bad there. And oops, take that blue. And this would normally give us a black kind of neutral, and it's not. It's giving us a green because there's so much yellow undertone to that brown. that's really a very, very muted muddy green. That's not a Jane's Grey type neutral, which is what one would normally expect. So let's go through them again. The cool red, warm yellow, cool blue gives us a muddy brown instead of an orange, a lovely, lovely, lovely but muted green, and a muted lavender. And with the warm red we get a more sunny colour, a more bright orange, but it's still pretty muted, and instead of a purple we get a grey. With the earth red we get a green grey instead of a purple, and we get a muddy orange, muddy yellow instead of something nice there. So you know, these are useful colours because these are colours that appear in nature, so there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to paint botanicals or something pretty and bright, you're going to struggle with these colours. Let's see if we can get the third and actually the most difficult neutral to make, which is the one that begins with a green. Let's try the Viridian, which does lift rather well. It is a phthalo green, you know, it's not a Viridian. It's got no granulation to it. It's very, very sort of flat as colours go. And I'm going to add to that the three reds. Let's do all three reds and see if we can get a neutral, because red and green should give us a neutral. So I'm going to do the warm red first, just from the top. Hey, now that is not bad. It's a brown toned neutral, but hey, we've got one. Cool red next. Now that's actually giving us a kind of a wine purple, which is interesting and not supposed to happen, but it is a bluish green, so you know, shit happens. And let's try the burnt sienna finally. That should be an earth red, but it's really not. And that's just giving us a darker olive green. So interesting that you can get a purple by mixing a cool red with a green, but you can with Holbein. So those are rather odd mixes. Those triads are a little bit unusual, I have to say. Now, just spattered wet paint everywhere, but you know, it happens. That is life. How well do they paint? Now, if you work from them from the tubes, they actually painted really nicely. When I did these swatches, I did them with a dab from the tube with a brush when I was painting these. They painted very well, the coverage is very good. How do they work in terms of their advertised lack of dispersants? Well, let's do a little experiment. Putting down some water, and I'm going to compare a lemon yellow by White Knight, because that's what I've got to hand. The yellow from here, and probably one from Core, because I think my Core set is to my right here, yes. So I'm going to do a warm yellow by Core. I don't know which one it is off the top of my head. I think it is Permanent Yellow Deep or something like that. I don't know. I'll have a look in just a second. So this is the Core one. You can see it moves, okay? You can see as soon as I put that down, it moved. And I'm painting from dried paint, okay? So all three are the same. So that flooded across, and I think personally, and I've said this in my Core video that I published a little while ago, I think Core have too much movement. I think Core are very hard to control, especially if you live in a soft water area, as I do. That was Diarylide Yellow by Core. Next up, Lemon Yellow by White Knight, just for comparison. I'm going to review it very shortly in the next video. And it's obviously a cool yellow, and it's migrating more slowly, but it is migrating, so let's pop a bit more of that on. I don't have my Daniel Smiths to hand. That's a sort of fairly standard colour. Maybe I do. Let's just try and see. Or a Schminker or something like that. Maybe I have. Oh no, I've got my Daniel Smiths right here, actually. I'll do a Hansa Yellow Deep from Daniel Smith for another comparison. And these are quite good with dispersants. Schminker are one of the best to test because they optimise every single paint. So Daniel Smith and most other manufacturers make one base and add their colours to it. Schminker very famously have a different base for every pigment, so that they're very, very optimal in movement. And I don't have a Schminker yellow to hand, I don't think. Although I could be proven wrong. I think there might be a Schminker starter set just here. Yes, look at that. Cad yellow from Schminker. I think it might even be cadmium yellow, cad yellow middle by Schminker. Very optimal movement. Not too fast, not too slow. And it's a heavier pigment. I'm not doing a fair test here. I'm not using equivalent pigments in all of them. But I wanted to give you an idea of what typical movements are like in paints that do have dispersants. So let's just get those labelled up. We had Schminker Cad Yellow. We had Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow Deep. We had White Knights Lemon, and we had Core Diarylide Yellow. So that gives you an idea of a background basis. So now we'll do the Holbein, and I'll just swing this around so you can see. I'm just going to brush over that very slightly because I am aware that the paper is probably a little drier than it was when I started. And I'm just taking it out from a pan, but it's pretty wetted. Okay, and you see it doesn't really move as much because it hasn't got a dispersant there. And what Holbein kind of expect you to do is to add Oxgall to the paint when you're using it. So that's the idea, is that you're adding your own Oxgall, you have it an optimal amount for the pigments you're using. They don't add any to the paint when they manufacture it. So that's their big boast, I suppose. Just seeing if I can see my bottle of Oxgall. Just out of reach, got it now. So let's try it with Oxgall. I'm going to do it just next door, just here. And I'm going to do it the way I would normally do it. I'm going to wet into that area so it's all kind of together. And I'm just going to add with a different brush. In fact, I'm going to use a silicone tool to just add a drop of Winsor & Newton Oxgall just into that water and mix it in, because I don't want to get it into the brush because then I could get it into the paint. So we'll have another go at mixing it in where Oxgall is present. I haven't put a lot of Oxgall in. Could add some more. But it is creeping a little more now. Let's pop a bit more Oxgall in. Yeah, there you go. Adding Oxgall makes it whoosh, which is what I find that the core colours do. And people sort of talk about core and they go, oh, it's because they have a different binder. I don't think it is. I think it's because they put way too much dispersant in their paints. And they just whoosh. And it's really annoying when you're trying to do anything controlled. Sorry, I just wanted to get the lid from the Oxgall bottle which had dropped on the floor. So there we have a little comparison of without Oxgall, where your colour moves but not much, or with Oxgall, where it's well and truly moved, compared to Core, which just moved, White Knights, which just moved, Schminker, which is slow movement but it's moved, and Daniel Smith, which has moved but again not too much. So I would say Holbein's movement of just that yellow, I mean I haven't tried all the other colours in exactly the same test, is similar to Daniel Smith, is similar to Schminker. It's a restrained movement, it is not like Core, it is not like White Knights, but it's pretty, it's a nice colour. The colours aren't bad, they mix in a very earthy, muddy kind of way in this particular set. So I would say the paints are nice, okay? The cost is another issue to bring in here. This starter set was nearly £40 for 6 colours, so these working out, I don't know, what, about £5–6 a tube, which is not a bad price. I think the price for that set was a lot because I think that set is possibly discontinued, so I think that's why it ended up costing a lot more money than maybe it would have done if I had bought the tubes individually or whatever. So cost-wise, I don't think they're that bad. You have to remember they are an Eastern watercolour at heart. I think if I were to paint with them on rice paper or even Yupo, I might find their flow, their restricted flow, really useful versus on Western watercolour paper, which is a little bit different. You know, they are a Japanese brand, I believe. Either Japanese or Korean, I can't remember which. I think they're Japanese. Yes, they are Japanese. I always get them mixed up with the main Korean brand. Colours are nice in this starter set, but as a starter set, no. As a starter on any brand, warm red, cool red, warm yellow, cool yellow, warm blue, cool blue. So if they'd had a set of 6, I would personally have restricted it to just a warm and a cool of each of the primaries and not included an earth. Green is useless, there's no point including a green. I don't know really why they did that. They are apparently very good for Sumi-E painting. I haven't tried them with that. Again, rice paper with squirrel brushes, I haven't tried it. So I don't know about their sort of breadth of what they do. I think that set was a little pricey for what it is. I think their normal price per tube is not too bad. I don't like the fact that everything in this range was mixed colours, mixed pigments, 3 pigments per paint, very earthy, muddy mixes, very, very much so. And hey, I'm a landscape painter, I like earthy, muddy colours, but I also like a little bit of ability to go beyond that. And I've had a look at the rest of the range, and a lot of them are very, very, very similar, 2 pigments, 3 pigments. I don't like that personally. I mean, single pigments where you can get it, great. Sometimes you need mixtures, that's fine, but you don't really need to have, even the blue. Why not just give us a phthalo blue? Adding a green to it, which virtually makes no difference to the actual colour versus straight phthalo blue, just seems futile, and all you're doing is making another reason for it to go muddy. And if we want to just really convince ourselves, let's just put some of it out here. And I've got a single pigment phthalo blue from White Nights, actually. There's virtually no difference in the colour. I mean, look at them. They are, near as damn it, the same colour. Okay, there's a bit more paint on the page on one of them. But what was the point in adding that green? It makes no difference at all to the tone. Really no difference. So they've added something, adulterated the blue so that it won't mix very well, and you don't gain anything from it. It's just silly. I'm actually going to add to both of those a cool yellow, a lemon yellow. It's a White Nights lemon yellow, just to see what the green is like, because maybe it makes a difference in mixes. I'm speculating here. I don't think it's going to make a blind bit of difference. So that's the White Nights blue with White Nights lemon, and this is White Nights lemon with the Holbein. Now it's a little bit of a chalky mix. It seems a little bit like there's a bit of an extender in there, because that mix seems a little bit creamier. I haven't made them sort of scientifically reproducible perfect amounts of pigment in each, so this one is a little bit more dark, this one is a little bit yellower, but there's no real difference in tone really, so I don't think that having all those pigments together has added anything to this brand. I think it's taken it away by the fact that you can't get beautiful bright mixes terribly well. I mean, you've got a nice orange there, and these are nice colours. I like them. They're not dirty, muddy colours. They're nice. They're great for landscapes, they're great for seascapes, but you're very restricted by the fact they've got so many pigments piled into them. It just makes them very clumsy to mix with. I do think that the cool red and the warm red are pretty. The warm yellow is a little bit brown, often the case with warm yellows. The Viridian hue is pointless. The peacock blue may as well be a phthalo blue, and the burnt sienna is very flat. It's a very flat brown burnt sienna. It doesn't have enough of a warm undertone to make good mixes. But hey, those are my views on it. So those are my views on this Holbein set, which I bought, I think, from either Jackson's or Hyatt's. I will put a link down below in the video description, which will take you over to my website, and from there you'll be able to look at the swatches better. You'll also find the procurement information, so that if you want to buy them and try them yourself, you can, and I'll also link to other sets in the brand, because there are cheaper sets that are like lots of colours reasonably inexpensively, so then you can explore them a little bit more. I'll also link to the materials that I've used, namely Daler and Rowney brushes and the Daler and Rowney Langton paper, because I know a lot of you see sort of the decoration in videos, if you like, the background things we're using, and you'd like to try them, so I thought I'd explain that in case you want to. So thank you all very much. It is good to be back, and good evening.